Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail for you, a little morning mail. Once again, we're going to go on a kind of a slimming regimen because that last mail haul was freakish. It was 45 minutes long. Ridiculous. So there's only 4 packages here. I doubt very much that could possibly happen. So let's see. Oh, this one is mighty solidly packed. Oh, and that explains it. Okay, all right. Okay, the reason why is because this is a deadline piece. This is a book for Kirkus. I review for Kirkus Reviews. And sometimes they send me physical books. Usually it's electronic copies, but sometimes they send me physical books, and this is one of them. And I used to talk about them years ago on this channel, but I decided it's not really fair to talk about a Kirkus book, hold it up, show it to you, read about it, give first impressions about it, which is what I do with what I get in the mail. It doesn't seem really fair since my review will be anonymous. Kirkus reviews aren't signed, and I do a lot of them, a lot of them. So, we'll put that one aside. That doesn't really count. So now we actually have only 3 packages. So let's see what the first one is. Let's hope for not more Kirkus books. Electronic books are so much easier to deal with in every way if you're reviewing. So what is this next one? Oh, okay, all right. This comes out in early May. Too late for March Mystery Madness. But then again, I guess this is not really a mystery. This is an oddity. We have seen this many times before on this channel. I imagine we'll see it many times in the future, including some cases that strike us as sacrilege. This is necrofiction. This is an author continuing to publish book after book after book every major book season, despite the fact that they have been dead in the ground for a long time. Where the author's name is kept alive in marquee print and the author's characters are kept alive. I don't agree with it. I don't like it at all. No matter who it is. I don't like it at all. Maybe, if you're an author's literary estate, maybe 2 or 3 years after they die, you do the old wheeze of saying, we found this manuscript in a desk drawer or something like that. And you get somebody to come in and totally uncredited write a new book with that author's name on it. Maybe. But only once. You don't get to do that more than once. You don't get to say there were novels floating around here like unbonded ions. And you don't get to just hire somebody to write. I mean, if it's a Tom Clancy novel, then how can it be written by Mark Greaney? I understand the estate's desire to keep these stories going, but part of the magic of the stories surely is connected with the storyteller. One way or another. This is a Robert Parker novel. Well, our next book is a Robert Parker novel. This is Robert Parker's Buckskin by Robert Knott. So this is one of his Western novels, but it's not. It has nothing to do with Robert Parker. He's long dead. This is not an outline. This was not an idea. This was not a conversation over, pea soup. This is total whole cloth, the creation of Robert Knott. And his name is way down there. And Robert Parker's is way up there. When he had nothing to do with this book at all. But let's see what it is. So this is early May. Robert Knott returns in his latest Cole and Hitch novel, the 10th installment in the late Robert Parker's best-selling series. But it isn't his series anymore. When he dies, it stops being his series, just like George R.R. Martin. To hit the most sensitive example. Trying to get that out of the way. Fans of C.J. Box and Elmore Leonard will relish this captivating new entry in a series that Booklist has called damn good reading and painfully suspenseful. When gold is discovered in the foothills just outside of Appaloosa, it sets off a fight between 2 shrewd local business operations as their hired gun hands square off for the claim. First, a young miner disappears, then another, then one of the businessmen himself is killed right on his front doorstep. As Cole and Hitch try to put a stop to the escalating violence, another killer is making his way toward town in pursuit of a long-lost dream. Cole and Hitch will have their work cut out for them to keep the peace, especially when all these ruffians converge at the huge Appaloosa Days Festival, where hundreds of innocent souls might get caught in the crossfire. Okay, so who is Robert Knott, the author of this book? The pub sheet actually has a section at the bottom about the authors. This book only has one author. He is an actor, a writer, a producer, as well as the author of, previous books. So, Revelation, Blackjack, and The Bridge, all previous Cole and Hitch novels. His extensive list of stage, television, and film credits include the feature film Appaloosa, based on the Robert Parker novel, which he adapted and produced with actor and producer Ed Harris. Okay. And then we get Robert Parker's biography, which concludes with the line that he died in 2010. So, anyway, I seem to recall that I have read some of Robert Parker Westerns and liked them very much. I've commented on this channel that Westerns seem like a dying genre. Straight up Westerns, 19th century Westerns seem like a dying genre, whereas once they were the most popular genre. And I think I remembered I've read a couple of this guy's stuff and liked it. So I'm not decrying the existence of the book. Just I don't know. We're going to have to figure out how to think about it. I am. I don't know how to think about necrofiction. I don't know what to make of it. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next one. We don't want a 3-book mail haul to be 45 minutes long. That would mean there's something badly out of whack here. As you can hear from the sound, my little assistant has woken up and is ready to attack the mail. So what have we got here? Oh, fantastic. Okay. Fantastic. All right, this is an April release. Yeah, okay, all right. Oh my God, look at all this stuff. Okay, I only require this. We saw this on this channel. We saw the advance copy on this channel. I have not read it yet. Shamefully. This comes out in the beginning of April. I should long since have read it. I have read other things in April and later, but not this. This is Stephen Rowley's book, The Editor, in the finished copy. And the reason that it has signature sunglasses there on the cover is because the editor is well known to you. The editor is Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who did a stint. She was a lifelong book lover, a lifelong reader. What does Stephen Rowley look like? That is our author. He's the best-selling author of Lily and the Octopus, which has been translated into 19 languages. And he's worked as a freelance writer, newspaper columnist, and screenwriter. And he's originally from Portland, Maine, and a graduate of Boston's own Emerson College. And this is, I read this to you, but it was months ago, and a lot of you are new here. This is, The Editor opens in New York City circa 1992. Everything in the world made sense. When Jamie Smale, a gifted but struggling young writer, learns a major publisher has expressed interest in his as-yet unpublished book. Finally, a real editor wants to discuss his work. Don't blow it, he thinks. Soon he's in a Doubleday conference room, nervously awaiting the guy who holds his future in his hands. As it turns out, it's not a guy. It's Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, and this is a story about that. There was a great book, a terrific book, on Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis as an editor. And I think when I got the advance copy of this originally, I made an empty promise to find that review. I reviewed that book. To find that review and link to it, I think I did that. I think I made that empty promise and then, of course, failed to deliver. I will once again try to remember to find that review and bring that book to your attention. And more important than the book, my thoughts about the book. So there we go. All right, so we'll move on here. We'll do the last one, and then we'll be done. Unless we get socked for mail again. This baby. Oh. Oh no! Oh goodness gracious! All right. Okay, this has got to be up soon. Yeah, this is up soon. I have read this by now. The last time I got it, I had not read it. Now I have read it, and I'm going to have to write about it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to write about it. This is the finished copy of The Right Side of History by Ben Shapiro, one of today's bright, young, conservative voices. Ben Shapiro repeatedly has navigated the vortex of political and cultural divisiveness that has engulfed our nation. Navigated it? Or worsened it? Called, quote, a foe of extraordinary polemical agility by the Washington Post, and perhaps, quote, the most important conservative at work today, who resembles no one so much as the young William F. Buckley, Jr., by the Washington Examiner, Shapiro seeks to return to fundamental collective cultural values that once defined our society. They never did. That was never true. Okay. That was never true. Things aren't like they were in the old days. No, and you know what? They never were. Once again, I, Claudia, steps forward to tell us the truth about the world. But anyway, this book in this book, the New York Times bestselling author cogently and passionately explores the roots of Judeo-Christian values and Greek natural law that shaped the world. Remember this from the advanced copy. It raised eyebrows with me, and I'm afraid it gets no clearer in the course of the book. The pub sheet is just an indicator of what you're going to get. Greek natural law. Greek natural law. What does that mean? What does that mean? I've now read the book and I have no idea what that means. The closest thing I can think is that for cultural and perhaps personal reasons, Ben Shapiro is just adamantly opposed to saying German natural law. But what he's talking about, a systematic way of understanding the world and taking a step back from your feelings in order to assess what's right in front of you and what you can prove and demonstrate, is a fundamentally German idea. The Germans came up with that in the early and mid-19th century. The Germans gifted that to the world. The fact that they collectively went crazy a couple of times after that and tried to take over said world doesn't invalidate the fact that we're all living with their intellectual... Well, anyway, here, let's see here. Greek natural law that shaped our world. Okay. But have given way to moral subjectivism, age-old tribalism, and individualist hedonism. Always beware of a young person railing against hedonism. America is struggling right now in a lot of ways, Shapiro writes. But its largest struggle is the struggle for our national soul. We are so angry at each other right now. That anger is palpable. Where did it come from? And came from the destruction of a common vision. If you say so. If you say so. I wonder where that common vision comes from. Bending the knee to the same imaginary creature? It seems to me that the people who herded my Irish ancestors into shanty towns and my Irish ancestors worshipped the exact same imaginary being. We used to believe in a founding vision supported by a framework of personal virtue culled from Judeo-Christian morality. Did we indeed? Did we indeed? I wonder, would 500,000 slaves in the American South agree with that? We used to see each other as brothers and sisters. Indeed. Did we indeed? Yes. I often want to lynch my brothers and sisters. Well, actually, in an Irish Catholic family, that is kind of true, but you know what I mean. Not as, quote, the 1% versus the 99%, or, quote, the privileged versus the victims. When someone says to you, we used to see each other as brothers and sisters, not as this business of 1%, it is a sure indication that the person saying that has joined the 1%. Invariably true. Invariably true. We aren't enemies. We were a community forged in fire and tethered together by a set of values stretching back to the Garden of Eden, which didn't exist. And what values were present in the Garden of Eden in the first place? Lying? Moral weakness? The defining aspect of humanity's experience in the myth of the Garden of Eden is moral weakness. Is that the common bond you want us to have here? Lying? A community of individuals working to understand the value of each other as images of God. A community of individuals who believe in our capacity to change ourselves and the world around us. A community of individuals who believe in the capacity to change our world and ourselves. Is the product of neither Judeo-Christian tradition nor Greek science, whatever that is. It's the product of the Enlightenment and German rationalism. That is not arguable, and yet that is the straw man on which this book is built. The simply wholesale ignoring of those two things, or those two things which are the birth of all of the modern world, or denigrating them. Why? I have no idea. I can guess in both cases. Probably denigrating the Enlightenment because a junior undergraduate understanding of the Enlightenment might view it as an atheistic movement. That's about where I'd put Ben Shapiro. I've known his type in dormitories. I'd put his understanding at about that level of the Enlightenment, so probably he thinks it's an atheistic movement. And also, as I mentioned, he might have all sorts of unexamined, unpacked personal reasons not to want to give credit to German rationalism to the extent that it's due. If that's true, then what he needs is to be on the right side of his therapist couch. Not to be writing a book as if he knows everything that's ever had to be known. This is an author, this is a person who has never said anywhere, in private or in person or in public, that he doesn't know something, or that he's undecided on something, or that he's unclear about something and groping towards an answer. anyway, what have we got here? Well, Shapiro believes that we can regain, indeed must regain, that community by returning to the values upon which Western civilization was built. Freedom, he argues, rests on twin notions: that God created every human in his image, and that human beings are capable of investigating and exploring God's world. Both of which are untrue. This is obviously not God's world. One half of the people in it think it belongs to many gods, or to a different individual god. So saying God's world, just calling it that, is self-evidently wrong. There are many, many, many gods, and even if you take a step back from the present day, there have been many millions more gods. They can't all be true. The world can't belong to all of them, and also the world was not created by God, and neither were people. You were created when mommy and daddy came together. Okay? We know that. And we've known that for centuries. That is obvious. Scientifically, factually, materially, you were not created. You were born. Okay? The genetic biological material in you came from other genetic biological organisms. I don't even know what that phrase means. That we were, what was it again? That God created every human in his image. I don't even know what that means. Is Ben Shapiro a product of a college education? Is he trying to say that he was created by magic? Or is he saying God created him in some metaphorical way, in his metaphorical image? In which case, what's the use? You're saying that and you can't prove it in any way. I know exactly how you were made, and I can prove it. A genetic test will prove your relation to your mother and your father. There isn't any test anywhere in the world that will demonstrate any kind of connection to any kind of imaginary deity. You can't provide it, nor can anyone else. So when you say that, I don't know what you mean even on a metaphorical level. Anyway, these notions were born in Jerusalem and Athens, respectively. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. No, they weren't. The Jerusalem that he's thinking of is Jerusalem from 2,000 years ago that was a bloodthirsty theocracy. And the Athens he's thinking of is also from 2,000 years ago, and it was a bloodthirsty slaveocracy. None of the things he's talking about were born in those places. They are just nice idealizations. They were born far more recently in places he probably doesn't like. Anyway, you get a hint of what the review is going to be, except without the foam. Offering a concise yet penetrating survey of these biblical and Greek origins, he moves through the history of Western thought, from early Christian doctrine to the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, to advances of science and widespread rejection of Judeo-Christian values and morality in the late 20th and early 21st century. And not a moment too soon. In most cases, not a moment too soon. Take Christian philosophy, remove its blood and its muscles and its bones and its claws and its predator's teeth, and just leave the philosophy, and you have a beautiful worldview. Just beautiful. And Christians who attempt to live by that worldview have my unbounded admiration. It's a very tough thing to be a genuine Christian. And the same thing is true for the chosen people. Take away their bloodthirsty past, take away their book commemorating one genocide after another, take away their book in which their deity promises them the right to commit genocide, and just instead stick to a people, a culture that values education, that values eloquence, that values inquiry. And again, you have something entirely admirable, but you have to do all of that. You have to take all the muscle, bone, and sinew out of it. Otherwise, you're left with... we have abandoned happiness or moral purpose, and Shapiro asks what we need to do to regenerate that moral purpose that provides the foundation for happiness. See the slip that happened there? This is freshman debating tricks. That's not getting by any of you. It certainly doesn't get by me. I can't imagine it's going to get by any of the readers of this book. Let's go through it again. You'll see it. It's plain as day. We have abandoned happiness or moral purpose. And Shapiro asks what we need to do to regenerate that moral purpose that provides the foundation for happiness. Okay, so who says it provides the foundation for happiness? First of all, who says we've abandoned happiness or moral purpose? I know plenty of people who have moral purpose, and I know plenty of people who are happy. Okay? We haven't abandoned those things. But even if we had, who says that the one comes from the other? You do. Alone. You alone say that. You are simply asserting that. You aren't demonstrating it. Anyway, the answer is four-pronged, in case you were wondering, book 2. We need to regain individual purpose, the individual capacity to pursue that purpose, communal moral purpose, and the communal capacity to pursue that purpose. These basic tenets mean we must understand that individual life has purpose. We are not victims, and if society is acting to violate individual rights, it is our job to work to change it. We live in an age of great advantage and freedom, and communally we must learn to share the same definition liberty when it comes to politics, and broadly speaking, the same definition of virtue when it comes to creating and maintaining social capital. Okay, all right, okay, all right, fine, indeed. Okay, an 8-year-old black boy in South Central Detroit is, in many objective, completely verifiable ways, a victim. If by victim we mean someone who is suffering because of systems and purposes that he has no control over and that he cannot change, that is a victim. That is pretty much a definition of a victim. If that is true, and it has to be, because that's the definition of the word, then saying we are not victims is nonsense. It is a way for you to justify what's going to come next, and which comes in the later parts of this book, which is heartlessness. If you're going to be heartless and feel good about it, the happiness that he talks about, which is mainly his own happiness, what you have to do first is to say that there's no reason why you shouldn't feel good. All that stuff has to go away. So if there are victims, and maybe you should be working to help them, no, there's no such thing as victims. We're not victims. To return our society to its former greatness will require boldness. Former greatness. Yes, that's wonderful. To return our society to its former greatness will require boldness. Yes, indeed. Okay. And also sacrifice. So our society is not great now. Is that right? Our society is not great now. So Ben Shapiro, wearing a prominent yarmulke, can go on a very popular lecture tour all throughout the American South, all throughout the American West, standing room only crowds, tons and tons of attention, very good box office receipts. But our society needs to return to greatness. So I imagine Ben Shapiro is saying that our society was great at some point in the past when we all had this communal sense of decency. So then Ben Shapiro thinks that he could have had that same tour in 1951 in those same places. Same yarmulke in place. Does he? Ben Shapiro thinks that, does he? Some of us remember those areas in those times. It's infallibly when a demagogue, no matter how nice, no matter how funny, he is so funny on Twitter, no matter how well spoken, he's obviously got a brain in his head. When some demagogue comes along and says, times are terrible, but they used to be great, and I know how to get us back there. I would hope that the 2016 U.S. presidential election has weaned us off such mountebanks forever, but I know it's not true. I know it's not true. And here we have a book. I'm going to have to review this. Yeah, the right side of history is a clarion call to spiritual arms and the first step to getting our civilization back on track. If your idea of getting our civilization back on track is to make it more religious, then, you know, you can leave town on the horse you rode in on. Okay. That doesn't help at all. That's anyway. All right. Well, that was the bulk of the mail haul. I didn't know this was coming. This is the finished copy of The Right Side of History by Ben Shapiro. It is, as you can tell from my reactions and from that pub sheet, it is largely codswallop. And there are some bits and pieces that are worth talking about, and I will talk about them. But the people who say, and I know quite a few of them who do, especially, I hate to say, young people, the people who say that Ben Shapiro is the good one when it comes to right-wing demagogues, they just have not examined his arguments. That's all. He makes a lot of sense on a lot of points, but not in this book. In speeches, yes, but not mostly in this book. To have some kid incapable of growing facial hair get up on a podium, or in this case behind the cover of a book, and lecture me about how we have to return to an idyllic past of communal belief is both infuriating and insulting. Anyway, then we have the editor, which I really need to I really need to buckle down with this book because I know the subject matter. I know the world of this subject matter. I know the setting of this book. So all this author can do is disappoint me. No, that's not true. This author can please me. Capture even one thing correctly. Jackie Kennedy Onassis is an extremely difficult person to capture correctly. Some good Kennedy biographies do it, but I've never seen it done in fiction. So this will be a chance for that to happen. And Buckskin by Robert Knott, with Robert Parker's name in big marquee letters up at the top. So that is our little mail haul for today. Unbelievably, we had 3 books, still a long mail haul, and it still contained a huge rant. So, we'll do better. We'll do better next time. We'll return to our communal spiritual roots next time. There'll probably be another mail haul, and I will be concise. I will have this in mind as an object lesson. But in the meantime, I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.